Actually, I did bring an artifact with me for this, and I brought this root here, and it's from Nepal. It's from northern Nepal. It's from north of Trisuli Bazaar, which is north of Kathmandu, and I'd always wanted to go to Kathmandu. It was really a very scary bus ride to get there from New Delhi, but it was worth it. It's like these big coffin buses that you can't escape. There's only the front door and everything else is barred off. So it's kind of it's for someone who's claustrophobic, it's really kind of a tough experience, but it was worth it. So on that trip, I had decided that I was going to hike up to Gosai Kunda, which is a monastery. It's about 4 or 5 days walk from Trisuli Bazaar, which is the jump point for Annapurna and Langtang, which is another destination. So he left for Gosai Kunda just walking through the mountains, and it was really like hazy and so you couldn't really see the Himalayas. I couldn't see them, and so it was really odd. Like you had a sense that you were somewhere that was very, very impressive, majestic, and all this, but yet like you just couldn't you couldn't get the feedback. You just had this kind of sense of this presence around you. And also I had altitude sickness and I had dysentery. I didn't realize, I realized it, but I didn't realize how serious it was. And so I was hiking through the mountains, and I came to this place where there was this root. This was like sitting in the ground, and it was just about that much of it peeking out of the ground. And I remember just stepping on it and then kept going, and then I just kind of stopped. And I realized that there was this attraction to this root. So I kind of spent at least an hour there just digging through this really hard compressed dirt, trying to get this root and wrestle it out without harming it, like trying to get it out like in its intact. And once I got it out, I really liked the way it felt in my hand, and I just started polishing it and walking. And I was getting energy that was actually kind of pulling me forward on this trek. And it turned out to be the key to the entire trip, like this whole entire trek, which lasted about 10 or 12 days. And because every time I would come into a village, or every time I come into contact with people in the villages, I was always carrying this like close to me, like to my chest, and they would always look at it, and even though you could tell they could recognize it, but they couldn't place it. And then really most of the villages, the only way you can get to those villages is by walking that trail. So everyone that I was meeting ahead on the trail had stepped on this probably, or tripped over it, or at least been aware of it, every time. It's like it's a marker. So for some odd reason, because they couldn't see the root actually in its context, it kind of told them that I was okay because I'm with the root, And so it made my entire trip really much easier, and I was able to get a lot closer to the people than I expected, that I expected it would be like. There are things like that, like it's kind of pointed out like things to me, like the fact that like the root, like the way that it's like this kind of tiny, actually when you think in the scale of someone's life, or in terms of, let's say, the landscape of the Himalayas, and you have this tiny root, and it's like so small, and yet like the power because of like the connectedness, like of all the people walking through, and the trail, and the confined area of like the trail, how it can like bring all these people together, like, or bring this whole experience together like the way it did. It's interesting because like I was driving this is just a few years ago, driving to Ottawa, and it was a full moon. It was like a harvest moon, and I'm driving along the highway, and I'm looking at the harvest moon, and I'm looking at the smile on the harvest moon, and I'm going, I know that smile. What's that smile? And I kept driving and driving, and then finally, because the moon had this kind of a sepia tone to it, and then I realized, I was going, that smile, that's the Mona Lisa. And I thought, this is interesting, because if the moon looks the way it does, like, you know, North America, like in Northern Europe, like in the Northern Hemisphere, everyone gets to see the same moon, the same kind of look. And I wondered, like, did Leonardo da Vinci, like, take that smile in the Mona Lisa from the moon? That's why everyone has this subconscious, like, attraction to the Mona Lisa without realizing really what they're recognizing is not the Mona Lisa, but they're recognizing the moon, which is something everyone, you know, sees from the time they're a child, you know. So there's an interesting connection there. So this is what I learned from this route, which you know, it's that play on words there too.